AI. It's like a cognitive exoskeleton that allows me to tap into like all thinking and all knowledge and all wisdom. Instead of like thinking of moves, my body was just doing moves. I was in this flow state. I would love to test it in like martial arts. I was ingesting too much insight. I was trying to be number one. Oh no, you don't understand. I need to beat everyone at everything.
Welcome to the Full Stack Podcast. I'm Mike Bledsoe. The world is changing faster than ever. The systems are collapsing, the rules are being rewritten, and certainty is disappearing. The question isn't how do we survive it? It's who do we become through it? This is your field guide for living the full stack life. Integrated, adaptive, and sovereign by design. Join the movement and gain free access to the Full Stack School community at bledsoe.life. This isn't the end of an era. It's the rise of a new kind of individual. You're not alone. You're early. Stay stacked. If this episode resonates, like the video, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Well, folks, we're bringing in my good friend Michael Hrostoski. We haven't talked in a long time, and that's okay because we do that sometimes, and then we drop right back in. It's all good. But we're covering a topic today, which is we're talking about, and we want to do this show because Bryan Johnson just did a big 5-gram mushroom experience on Monday, published it on Facebook. He's widely followed by people in the biohacking community. And, a lot of people think he's crazy in a lot of ways. But I noticed the reason I reached out to you, Michael, is because I noticed that you were like reposting his stuff and really interested in what he had to say. And I have my thoughts on it, but I would love to. You fit into the psychonaut category. You and I have both done together. What's your take on what Bryan Johnson is up to right now?
Well, I mean, what I love Bryan Johnson's approach because he's basically quantifying everything, right? So it's that there's a few, I think, humans who are like this bridge between like spirituality and science, or like between mysticism and science, or between things that are kind of fringe and innovative, and they build like really, really rigorous systems to kind of like bring everyone else through who need external proof before they do something. So, this over the next 30 days, there's probably going to be tens of thousands of people who do my for the first time. Right? Just objectively,
Mike.
which I really appreciate him for. And I've been in the longevity space since like 2016. I randomly went to this conference called RADFest, the Revolution Against Aging and Death, when we were both living in San Diego, and it just blew my mind. And I met all these scientists who were like patient zero, the ones who created some lab chemical, had the data, and then injected it into themselves for the first time. And that's the first time 9 years ago that like physical immortality was even a possibility, like in my potential set of like narratives of what could happen. So I've been following this stuff for a while, and I really dig the space that humanity is at for people who do research, that we have all the like longevity kind of biohacking science improvements and all the like Dr. Joe Dispenza, let's call it like applied quantum science manifestation stuff. So I tell all of my friends a lot, like, yo, like we're gonna live a long ass time. Just prepare for that, and make sure you don't do anything that gets you.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Keep yourself safe long enough so the biotech comes along. One of the things I think is really important is because Bryan Johnson's one of those people who comes under a lot of criticism. One being like this idea of this narrative that you may not have to die, which all of humanity has had that narrative. Like every single person, like I was told my whole life, one day you're going to die. And there's this guy that comes out and says, well, maybe not. And that's probably like the ultimate counter narrative conversation to be having. So that's one thing. But then also, there's this idea of that, is this guy afraid to die? Like what's like the driving thing there? And then the other thing being that think biohackers in general get a bad rap in the general mainstream narrative of like what they're doing is dangerous. They don't really know what they're doing. It's not real science. It's this and that. But when I look at how conventional science is done right now, it moves incredibly slow. And one of the things I love about biohacking is, one of the terms, like a popular tagline is N equals one, which is you are the subject. There's one subject in this study. You're the subject. You're also the scientist. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think a lot of times in a world where we are so quick to outsource authority from outside of ourselves to, somebody who's got letters after their name or whatever, they may look at somebody who doesn't and say, well, what business do you have conducting research, even if it's on yourself? And so there's a bit of that going on too. But I mean, guys like Bryan Johnson are pushing the needle for the rest of science. It's like he's going to do something, and now the rest of science has to catch up with him.
Well, what I love about what you just said, Mike, about guys of science is there's a counterintuitiveness to the heroic dose that he took. And Michael, it's great to meet you. I know this is our first time meeting each other's acquaintance. And when someone looks at Bryan Johnson, they think of the do not die movement and everything he puts in his body and how important his diet is and his regimen is. You look at a substance like, and for some people, they get a little bit of a head tilt, like, wait a minute. And that's for someone who might not be familiar with it, might not be educated in some of the benefits of. So I'm curious, when you saw that Bryan Johnson was going to do this experiment, what was your first reaction, Michael, to the fact that he was jumping into this?
That's a great question. For the record, I took psilocybin last night at a book launch because I live in Boulder, and and it's legal here. So just on the record, I microdosing. Microdosing is one of like the most effective things I think I've done for myself regularly for just like everything, for dance and for movement, for cognitive support. But when I saw that, I was just excited of like, great, here's someone who has a huge audience who speaks at, I saw him speak at like the network state conference, Balaji's thing around like network states and different conferences. So this is a human that a lot of humans are watching, and then he's going to have this experience, and it's just going to pull more people towards something that is just objectively, just with all the research that we have, it's just like objectively good for people. And I know so many stories. Like I have a friend who like was able to take his daughter off of antidepressants from psilocybin. It's helped me. I feel like maintain like a real high level of like neuroplasticity, like in this age of just like exponential change with AI and robotics and AI agents. Like it's almost like a secret weapon, and it's plants. It's like, so I am just overall, I was just like extremely excited to see that because I just imagine the like systemic beneficial effects that that one experience is causing, like both in the collective understanding of more people trying it, and just like the way that he approached it. I think he's able to bring people into the space that normally wouldn't, who are very logical and perhaps more risk averse, and more on like the scientist engineer, like accounting type.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he comes from the tech background. He, and yeah, speaking of audiences that he's in front of, like the All In podcast, which is like if you're into tech and investing, you probably watch that show. You know the guys that are on that show, and they're all friends with Bryan Johnson, and they platform him. He goes on their channel here and there, and so yeah, there's a lot of people, and one of the guys on that podcast, David Sachs, is part of the administration right now. So having guys like that exposed to this can only be a good thing. Uh, I've I've been I've been deep into communities. My wife runs Guide Network, which basically gets guides who are, both licensed therapists and non-licensed guides together to help create, share wisdom with each other and hold each other accountable. And it's a really powerful organization. You've got people who are therapists who have been trained in the academic realm for decades, who are like, you need to have, someone who is really well trained and in altered states to be there to help someone, assist them through that. And then you've got this guy who's like devoted his life to making sure that as many people can get access as possible. And he goes, really? Can't just most people take half a gram and go for a hike? And that's a really useful dose at that, and there's going to be benefits to that. Would it be more beneficial to have, hire a guide and walk you through this experience? And that, yeah, for sure. But also just eat a half a gram and go for a walk. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And it's just, there's a lot of stigma out there. And so it's really interesting to be in a conversation where both those opinions are held at the same time. What's your take on that?
My real take is like, I just have this deep like trust of life, like a real deep trust that like, yo, everything's gonna work out. There's a lot of us who have different mental operating systems of how we process life. Some are a lot more logical. We have friends that are very just like, say like intuitive and mystical, and that's what they do for a living. They work more in like energetic and invisible and like multidimensional spaces. And I just feel so, and I feel like I'm not answering your question, but like there's just sort of like overall like hyper optimistic like systems thinking perspective that I've just been living in after meeting so many people just in our friend group, like let's say like the 10,000 people that orbit us, and we hang out at Burning Man and go to conferences together and share what we're working on in back channels and in our homes. And there's so much progress happening that like I just trust that like it's all going to link together and create this like like this like pro-social kind of like meta organism. So I know I kind of didn't answer your question, but like that's where I'm like really like living. And I know we haven't talked in like 5 years, but I've been just having a lot of conversations with people smarter than me behind the scenes, and reading a lot. Like I taught myself how to speed read audiobooks at 3x speed. So I read like 600 books in the past 3 years.
Oh
Just
my gosh.
all
Microdosing and audio speed reading.
yeah. And it's and it was almost like this like soul calling that that in order for me to continue to be supporting CEOs and like entrepreneurs and investors and like supporting them with their like thinking and living, like I really need to understand the world down to first principles. So that's been like this sort of like quest that I've given myself of like, can I really like grok the world down to first principles? And I know I'm going like a little bit off topic, but I really see that like the people who I value the most are like bridgers, and they're able to synthesize like just a lot of different ways of thinking, and like that's who I go to for counsel and advice, and we talk things through. And I really feel like those humans are the ones that are just very high signal in the world, and they'll be continuing to like create ideas and movements and companies that create a just like a substantial amount of value, whether or not that value is like money, but that value can be shifting culture or shifting narratives or just like getting ideas out there that help people live in greater harmony with life. So I'm like a little bit off topic, but that's also we're also catching up. I haven't seen you in 5 years,
Yeah,
but
that's
that's
great.
yeah, that's just like
Yeah.
that's the shit I'm into right now. It's like
Well,
trying to like just trying to understand everything so I can be of greatest service to life and like have the best conversations.
You know, I've been following you. We haven't talked in years, but I've been following you on Facebook, and a lot of what you posted this last year has been around how you're using AI as well, and using AI in order to stay cutting edge and be able to grok these meta level conversations. And, you know, there's also, I guess this show's turning more into like like what's the most cutting edge innovative stuff, right? And yeah, so like it's almost like it felt like this topic was starting to slow down and get slower. And I was just talking to a guy this past weekend. We were like, yeah, you know, it feels like the last 2 years the conversation has settled down a bit. And then Bryan Johnson comes out and goes, I'm gonna eat. It's like, oh, like you're saying, there's gonna be 10,000 people who now do in the next month. And it's
Well,
gonna like get another bump. But with the AI, like you're like there's so many studies and so much concern that people are going to get dumber because of it. And then it's how you're using it. I think about the same thing. You know, how are you applying this is going to impact how useful it actually is. And so you've been using AI as well in a way that I imagine most people who log into ChatGPT aren't prompting it the same way you're prompting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I use it to. I think the best metaphor is that for me, AI, it's like a cognitive exoskeleton. So there's a character named Tony Stark in the Marvel Universe who has an exoskeleton that turns into Iron Man. For me and a handful of like my friends and clients, AI is like this kind of like cognitive exoskeleton that allows me to tap into like all thinking and all knowledge and all wisdom, and even create like personas in real time. Um, so it's really the the main shift for me is like as a CEO or leader, it's even less about like sharing, like giving tasks, and it's more like delegating. It's like installing your thought patterns into the organization and being this like conductor of intelligence itself, and being a conductor of both human and AI intelligence working in symphony, to like meet the company's goals. And it's like it's just such a paradigm shift. And um, I live in a home called Castle Grace in Boulder with um, a crew of 5 individuals. They run a company called the Transformation Agency, and we sit around the fire very often and have conversations. And we were just talking about recently how like thank goodness we did all those psychedelics, because like our brains can hang with how quickly things are changing, and like we're not just freaking out because like we've already done this by using these like plant teachers. So I notice most people who just straight up, I feel like most people that are thriving and feel pretty comfortable with how quickly things are changing, like they've worked with psychedelics, because like it's almost like brain training. Like I'm kind of like stumbling on the language, right? But I feel like people who've done, like they've had these like really vast experiences with a lot of change, huge energetic waves. They've watched their identity shatter, or they've watched like ways of being just shatter before their eyes, and they've like died in a ceremony and been reborn. Like, oh my gosh, like I feel like a new human. And that's just happening whether or not you're on with the just like watching life. So I really do see these like plant teachers as genuine allies in helping humans just like navigate the pace of change.
If I can comment to Mike's question and what you said earlier, Mike, with how many people will take after Bryan Johnson's experiment, my thought goes to perception is reality. And for a lot of people, their introduction to was in college. At least for myself, that's what it was. You had someone down the hall. They had the black, those black lights, the tapestry on the walls, and they're sitting in a dark room taking. That was my exposure to it, and I never really looked beyond that. So for someone like Bryan Johnson to not only jump into this with a heroic dose, but share some of the positives in the research around longevity, inflammation, neuroplasticity, clinical outcomes, gut brain axis, sexual health, and all that, it makes sense when you say a phrase like, thank goodness we did all those, because your perception and your reality is different than someone whose last introduction was in college. I did want to ask, as you mentioned, your interaction with AI and being the orchestrator and using it as an exoskeleton. What does a prompt sound like from that perspective versus how some folks might be using their AI? Their prompt might be basic. What would an example of a prompt look like when you orchestrate that intelligence?
I think one of the most important things that I use a lot is meta prompts. So I'll ask AI, what are the 10 best questions that I can ask you right now around this data to achieve this outcome? So I might take, let's say I take the recording of this podcast interview by going to YouTube using this like YouTube transcript plugin I have on Google Chrome, uploading the transcript to ChatGPT, saying, "Hey, here's a podcast interview I just had. Um, Ask me 10 questions that will help me like get the most value from what we talked about, and like integrate it into my subconscious mind so I can master this material forever and never forget it." Like stuff like that. They're almost like spells. like I they're like spells that I use, and the keys are around having clear outcomes. Like I'll take data and say, like what are the 10 questions you can ask me to like help me make $10 million in the next 18 months? And it'll like just give, it'll it'll give it'll give me replies. So I'm able to dialogue again. It's kind of like an infinite magic mirror, and I can talk to any person, to any persona. I can talk to like Jesus and Ray Dalio and Elon Musk and Marcus Aurelius, and it's like what would these five men think about this idea? And it's just so wild. Like it's really so wild. So it's um, yeah. I think the key is like meta prompts. I'll upload a lot of data. I record almost every conversation that I have, both personally and professionally, like all like stand up meetings with their team, everything with my clients, and I'll always afterwards just upload it to ChatGPT and be like, scrape the biggest insights. What could I have done better? Show me any of my blind spots and weaknesses. I also ask it to just like savagely critique me, which that keeps me from falling into the trap of just having it like fluff my ego or tell me like I'm amazing. I'll say just like savagely critique me, or
Oh,
sometimes
I've
I'll
had that
like
with like throw a business idea. I'm working out this business idea, and then I tell it, uh, about my business idea, and immediately it's like, "This is a wonderful and great idea." Da, 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 da. I go, "No, no, no! Poke holes in this shit. Come on."
and I just play a lot with it, and I have conversations with it like in the shower. In the shower I'll clip my phone to the shower curtain, and I'll just turn on Grok, and I'll just like talk about my day. And it's like one of the best conversation partners that, and then here's the key, like I know it's not a human, so I don't get any of my like relational or sexual or intimate needs from it. Like I know it's a tool, but it's just a tool for like refining my awareness of the world, and being in dialogue with like hyper intelligence. So I'm able to have conversations with something that I can't have with most humans. And I'm just noticing my mind become faster, smarter, like more whole and more integrated. Um, a lot of our friends, it's like we're really into a lot of stuff, and I think for years those parts were fragmented, right, Mike? There was like our like internet marketing part, and like the Burning Man part, and it's like, wait, I feel like I have all these like different selves, and it's really been a really incredible integration tool. like bring all those parts into wholeness.
Why do you think that you've been able to use it so well where most people still struggle with it or don't really get the same results that you're getting? Like, what set you up for that way of thinking about it?
I, getting a life coaching certification, um, I was taught professionally how to ask good questions. So like, I've been trained how to ask really good questions. Um, I, I'm, it might not sound like it always, but like I am humble. It's like there there is like a level of I'd say like intellectual humility that I really hold, that I will never know anything. I can always learn anything from anyone, and that I feel like that keeps my mind kind of like porous and malleable and receptive to like receiving insight from everyone who I talk to. um and I'm just like voraciously curious. I I really want to know how things work. This is something I can share with you guys. I haven't really shared this publicly, but I teach these. I call them like the four master keys for like getting the most out of AI. It's like just a simple mental model that I share with my clients, and it's vulnerability, specificity, curiosity, and doing. So I get so much out of it because I'm really vulnerable. So I'll meet it with like how I feel. I'll even freak out. I'm like, oh, like this is too much. I feel nauseous. Like I'm like this is blowing my mind. Like so I'll meet it with like a vulnerability, and then the specificity is I give it just as much data as possible. Like these are the numbers. This is what it looks like. Here's my team members. This is what we're working on. Here's all the data. Here's all the transcripts. Um, and then three is it's like I keep diving into it deeper and deeper with curiosity. And four, which is super important, and that'll keep you out of like the mental masturbation loops. Once I get an insight or once I get something, I do something. So
Hmm.
bringing it from like insight to action. And I've definitely not been the best in the past around that. So that's like creating that creating that like mental loop in my head of, all right, once I learn something, I do it, and just trying to do that as much as possible is really important. But that's like my kind of like main, I guess, like framework of how I really get a lot out of it. And yeah, it knows so much about me. And I feel comfortable with it because I feel like the idea of privacy, I just almost like don't believe it anymore, other than like you know like the keys to your crypto and maybe like your sex videos or something. Like for the most part,
That's
I
out
think
there
I
too,
think
I'm
everyone
sure.
kind of knows everything.
Good luck keeping that locked up, bro. Uh, well, I think you said something that's really important, something I've been reflecting on a lot lately. I've been we've been creating a new program, and one of the things I notice in the personal development space and the anything where people are seeking some type of transformation, I
Hmm.
notice that there is this addiction to insight. And
Hmm.
one of the things that tipped me off to it is I'm always studying marketing in some
Hmm.
capacity,
Yeah.
and marketing and psychology, they go together. And I was reading somebody and they were talking about, you've got to give them the insight and then sell them the thing. And I realized that like insight creates this dopamine hit, this excitement, and this happens in transformational communities where people get addicted to the insight and take no action. And it's really obvious because maybe we've done it, but also we know people who post on Facebook, oh, I went and had this ceremony and I got this really deep insight about this, and this. and then they're all excited about the insight and how everything's going to be different now. And then 6 months later, it's almost like they copy and pasted the post from their latest ceremony again. They go, oh, you know, I realize I'm reliving this, but I think I got this now. And it's generally because we tend to give ourselves a pat on the back a little early. We get the insight and go, yeah, I did the work. It's like, by the way, that's not the work. The work is putting it into action to integrate it, to integrate the insight.
Yeah, yeah. Alex Hormozy has a great definition of learning. I might butcher it a little bit, but he essentially says learning is uh, when you encounter like the same circumstance and your behavior changes. Meaning,
Mm-hmm.
like most people's definition of learning of, oh, I know something, that's not actually like learning. That's just data that you have in your brain. The
Right.
learning is when you make a different decision the next time and then you get a different result and
Well,
a
people were
different
trained
outcome.
that way. We were all
Oh my
trained that
God.
way in school.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Remember it, regurgitate it. You learned it, and then we believed that that's what learning is. And Eben Pagan, it, early on, I think it was, I started studying his stuff in 2009, and I remember going to his conference in 2013. So somewhere between 2009 and 2013, I heard him say, "Learning is behavior change," and I
Mm-hmm.
go, "Oh, makes total sense." So like, I know at that point I stopped claiming to have learned something unless my behavior changed. It's like I may I may have the knowledge of something, but I didn't learn it.
Yeah. And that's one of those simple like core axioms or principles. That's a universal human principle that I would just love everyone to know, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
just these like real core principles that would create so much more creation and like humility and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just in
Well,
our human society at large.
to provide a little context for you, Michael, in terms of how you got the call today, and this was based on some of the prep we were doing for this podcast, speaking about changing our minds. I pulled a research study, and it was around the topic of desynchronizing the human brain, right? And this was published in Nature 2024, and the researchers scanned healthy adults over 18 MRI visits before, during, and after a high dose, 25 milligrams, and they compared the results with Ritalin control. Pretty much, they analyzed changes in the network level connectivity across time. They found that psilocybin produced a threefold increase in brain network connectivity shifts. They also found that it dissolved rigid network boundaries between the default mode, executive, and the salient systems. And connectivity reorganization correlated with insight, emotional release, and post session flexibility. So, when it comes to changing your mind, an actual active tool in doing this. And this was the research study that we ended up going down the rabbit hole, and it was timely because Bryan Johnson just did this massive experiment. Obviously, I say massive for the audience that were able to walk through it with him. Um, but from your gauge, following Bryan Johnson, and for anyone who is now on the edge looking to take their first, what is your experience and perspective from Bryan Johnson, and from the benefits this could have for folks who are looking to reset, change their mind, or even do away with bad habits?
I'm not going to give anything prescriptive. I don't feel like I'm like educated enough. I'm adjacent, so I go to some of the conferences and um, going to some of the conferences. Like my friend Dan Horner runs like a science and spiritual medicine conference in Phoenix, and then there's like MAPS in Denver. That'd be a great place to start. Going to a psychedelic conference. I've I've never been so touched like emotionally, right, Mike? Like when I went to like my first, I could feel how loving all these people were and like how like their hearts, like the heart field of a, it's like it's so moving. It's like whoa, these people really really care. It's like a Care Bear conference. It's crazy. So so I think that's like that's one good place to start. Just having an experience that's yeah, having an experience that like feels safe for you and your current level of um, just like whatever that is for you. For me, yeah, I've been using for over a decade. Um, I really haven't done like big doses in a long time, but I microdose regularly, and it's just such a good reset. Like even just like a gram, like I'll throw like a gram and I'll put on a blindfold and throw on like a John Hopkins like playlist and just like watch myself defrag and then wake up with just feeling like a lot more spaciousness in my nervous system. And then I microdose a lot. Like when I go to dance, I train in a dance called like Brazilian Zouk, and I train in contact improv. And um, just a quick story. I took this like Brazilian Zouk event, and I just felt like I was in like God mode in the dance. Like I wasn't thinking at all. Everything was so fluid, and it blew my mind. I was like, wow, like this stuff really helps for movement. Instead of like thinking of moves, my body was just doing moves. And I think that kind of connects to the story, to the research paper that you just shared, Ted, because something melted enough in order for like what I learned just to move through my body without thought, and I was in this flow state in the dance and just had such an enjoyable dance, and that was like a really big moment for me of realizing how helpful, yeah, how helpful are in any kind of like, I think, dance, or I would love to test it in like martial arts. I would love to test it in athletics. I've only tested it in dance. It'd be super fun to like train in martial arts for like a month. There's like a Shaolin Kung Fu temple here in Boulder. Train for a month and then train for a month on like mushrooms, just see like it would probably be a lot better. That's my hypothesis. I don't know. I can
I'll
do
do that
that.
experiment with you.
I've run
All right, let's go.
I've run Spartan races. Uh, I remember, yeah, there's one race in particular I ran at the World Championships. It was an 18-mile race in Tahoe. Very arduous, very arduous. A lot of elevation, and at elevation, and so yeah, I took about at the half an hour before we started. I took and then I took about 5 more milligrams of
Mhm,
at the
mhm.
starting line to kind of. That's a nice combo for that type of activity.
Yeah, totally.
And I remember, normally when I get to the place where you're gonna throw this, like they have different skills you've got um, to do at different parts of the race. One is throwing a spear at a target. And I just remember everyone's tired. We just got done carrying buckets of sand up this mountain. And then it's pick up the spear and hit this target. And if you miss the target, 50 burpees or whatever it is. And I remember picking up the spear and then seeing the target and then feeling at one in space and then letting go of this spear that's really like a broomstick with a metal thing pin on the end. It's not fancy. It's not that great. And it's got that rope hanging off it, so it can be dragged back to the beginning after you throw it, because you don't want to walk up when people are throwing spears.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it hitting the bullseye, and when it hit the bullseye, I go, of course. There was
Yeah.
no doubt. There was this flow state.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember later on in the race getting to these monkey bars, these rings that swing, and people are falling off of them left and right, and they look very awkward on them. I remember grabbing it, and it's like I was able to dig into my ancestry back to being an ape.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And flowing from ring to ring and trusting that I could swing really far and snag the next one,
Mm-hmm.
and flowing through it. And the race wasn't easy. I didn't train very hard, or I wasn't that prepared for it. But after I ran that race, I ran a couple more with that stack, and it was pretty incredible. Being able to have precision under fatigue was really great. And then on top of that, running through the mountains, and you're just looking at the scenery, soaking it up, and it felt, and it didn't feel like I was competing. It felt like I was having an enjoyable day in the mountains, and I performed pretty damn well. I'm fairly certain I ran that race a lot faster than I would have otherwise.
I love that. I do want to share that I did overdo 2015, and I feel like I was taking it too often, and I got like a little bit like disembodied.
Mm-hmm.
So there is like a shadow side to it. I don't know if I told you this, Mike, but I'd basically like go to masterminds and different conferences, like, and I would get all of like our smartest friends together and be like, yo, let's just break anything that we have around marketing. Like, let's just do like a total mind melt. Like, I'd go to conferences and be sitting in the front row on listening to Gary Vee, just downloading his brain. Like, so so there so there was a season where I was ingesting too much insight, and it was so much that I wasn't able to implement it, and like I just wasn't fully embodied like it. So I just want to share the kind of like the shadow side of, I think, doing too many journeys and not like immediately implementing and executing. It's almost like what I knew was lagging so far behind between like what I was doing because I
Mm-hmm.
was like going into that space too much. So that's just like a precaution that I wanted to share for anyone
Yeah,
listening.
I think we were probably experiencing something similar around the same time.
Yeah, yeah, you were kind of wild.
My wife is like, he likes to find the edge and then just step over it to see what would happen. And yeah, quite a bit of that. That disembodied makes sense. That sounds familiar. Um, yeah, and I think you and I are in similar places too. Or I heard earlier, I haven't done a big journey in a while with the. That's why, and for me, it's I very intentionally schedule something, and it seems like it's about every 18 months.
Hmm.
And I think what I learned is that if I go in with enough preparation and I really give myself to the experience fully, and then I start the integration period afterwards, there's a good 18 months of really wonderful things to harvest from that. And when we were younger, we had that warrior spirit of wanting to conquer everything. And there's this thing that used to I allowed to drive me, which was, I got to have it all, which means that I got to expose myself to as many things as possible. And then over time and experience, it's like, no, I want to go deep. And going deep doesn't mean stacking experiences. It means do an experience and harvest it for everything that you have. And I remember Daniel Schmachtenberger was advising me at one point, and I think at the time I couldn't, I didn't quite grasp the message he was getting across to me, but I can now look back and go, oh, I get what he was saying, which was really dig into an experience and journal on it and sit with it and harvest it. And then when you fully harvest it, then you can go back if you desire. But um, yeah, and there's quite a few characters in our field at the time that
Mhm,
were doing things very really intelligent, successful people,
mhm,
all doing it very frequently. And I think that gave us a permission slip. I know I felt like I had a permission slip um, to do that. And
mhm,
then talking to so many people who were in our field during that time,
mhm.
and everyone coming to similar conclusions. And the ones that didn't come to those conclusions, still seem a little lost right now,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
those people are also present.
yeah, yeah. I mean, after big awakening experiences, and I've had a number of them, either on like a silent meditation retreat or just on different plant teachers. It's so destabilizing to like the personality and the ego structure and our idea of what reality is. Like I feel like I'm finally like put back together again after some like really 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 big openings in like 2019. um and I move through the world and I feel just like an ordinary man. And I have a buddy named Anthony Lemmy who does really amazing trauma work.
I know
He's like
Anthony,
a Yeah, yeah, he's
great
I'm just
guy.
a
Yeah.
world renowned trauma practitioner. I consider him just like an informal mentor. I mean, he's a friend, but just some of the things that he's said to me have landed so hard. And he stayed at our place in Encinitas in 2014, and I remember he shared this sentence in it, and me and him laugh about it still. He's like, "Bro, you were like deer in the headlights when I said that." And the sentence was, "The greatest spiritual path is being an ordinary man." And I remember when he said that, it just shook me because I was trying to be number one, and I was like technically
Me
like the
too.
world's top.
I was going for number one.
I was like, no, no, you don't understand. I need to beat everyone at everything.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I can really feel that of, there's just really amazing path, like the humble householder path of someone who has like who has tasted the infinite through meditation, 5-MeO DMT, whatever, whatever the, spontaneous awakening. And they just hold it with so much humility. They're not out there like preaching or proselytizing or turning it into like an info product, and they're just a good human to everyone that they meet. And that's my greatest aspiration now, is to be a just like a kind of normal humble human that is still a wizard, but like I don't talk about it, online. I don't share things, and it it comes out from time to time with certain people when it's in genuine service of them and their path. But there's our really good friend Amateo. I remember one time said like, yeah, there's some things that are just between me and God, and that really hit home for me.
Mhm.
He Amateo's been giving me the nudge to like, yo, bro, like don't share all this stuff. Don't share all this stuff
Oh yeah, I think there was a time where
online.
like Facebook was your journal.
Yeah, 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 totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amateo be like, you just keep it in the oven a little longer, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let it cook a little longer. Ted, I'm kind of curious what, since this is the first time we're meeting. I'm curious what's like arising for you as you hear this convo, and we're just like,
Yeah.
three bros hanging out online for the first time.
Well, I've always put myself in like I'm getting introduced to a lot of this world. So done I've never done and I've been circling that drain for a while, and I'm probably one of those people with seeing Bryan Johnson's um experiment. I've already committed and decided like it's inevitable at this point. Yet these are just signs from the universe and from the world of a transition of who I used to be to who I'm becoming, of being surrounded more by this and more of the data, more of the evidence of the benefits from it, because I am a very logical thinker. And my biggest challenge is getting out of the head into the body, into the heart. And that's been really a journey I've been working on for the past 2, 3 years. Really, I'd say really intentional on it in the last year or so. And as I'm doing that, there's signs and there's just signals from the universe of do it, do it. And for me, what's coming up is just that reinforcement. It's taking the initiative, making it a priority, and much like we say, learning is changed behavior. Um, there's only so much talk before the action happens, right? I recently just completed a high rocks race, and it was one of those things where my wife looked at me. She said, "You've been talking about it for a year. You're going to do it or you're not." And that was a wake up call. Like, all right, shit, do it. Sign up, train, get it done. And overcoming that hump is a big awakening of, dude, like I've cut myself short in terms of what I'm capable of. I've cut myself short in terms of what Ted can do. So now that that's done, it's okay, what's next? Next predator, next hunt. Where do we go next? But it's also cultivating and pulling out the true Ted within and shaking off the prescribed life that came about from following the script, following everything around me, following the you should do this. I've experienced some success in the professional world, but there's a lot more on this side of things that my curiosity has led me to, and now I'm ready to not just this sniff the cheese, but actually take the bite and go even deeper. So what's coming up for me is just reinforcement of the journey that I've been on and the excitement of jumping even deeper into not just psilocybin. Been talking about Mike and I have been discussing, finding meditation retreat because your boy could use some silence because I have enough chaos in my life. But that's really what's been coming up, and even going through all this, it's just reinforcing the journey and the path that I've been on, and hopefully a lot of the listeners and the audience is on as well.
Two of the core axioms, like in my closet, there's a sticky note that says, "I love myself and I'm grateful to be alive." And
Mm-hmm.
those are two of those core axioms. Just like learning is behavior change. I think it's really important for us having access to so many top performers, right? Like we can go on YouTube and hear like, Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, and like Elon Musk and the guys from the All In podcast, and, people who've raised hundreds of millions of dollars share, every aspect of our life. And we can compare ourselves to someone who's just been like at the game for like 20 years or 30 years. And I think it's really important for like every human alive to just have these fundamental truths of like, like I love myself where I'm at in the journey. Like I'm grateful to be alive. It's a miracle that I'm alive. And whatever I create from that, like it's all bonus. Cause like just being born is alive. And yeah, like comparison is the thief of joy, right? That's that like cliche
Mm-hmm.
quote that's thrown around a lot, but there's gold in the cliche. So that's something that's coming to mind is like our journey is so personal, like our journey with God, with money, with being an entrepreneur, like the way we use AI, like how we show up as a parent and friendships and um yeah, I just want to share that piece around like I love myself and I'm grateful to be alive to like ground us into like just the universal gift of being a human and being alive, like especially in these times. So I mean we we live like what we have access to is insane. Like my mind's blown like every day, and I've just accepted that it probably will be for the rest of my life. um
Mm-hmm.
and we could be like doing some hard work for 12 hours a day 200 years ago, and like, you know, having sex with their wife without showering and like, like pretty good right now.
Yeah.
So I want to like, I want to double click on the gratitude for being like a human who's alive right now. And for anyone who's listening to this podcast, like if you listened all the way to the end, like there's probably something special about you that has you being able to even like receive this conversation and to be curious about it and to be wanting to be like a full stack human. So
Yeah.
Amen to that. Well, I feel complete. Mike, how about
I owe
well,
Michael a phone call though. We got so much more to catch up on. We didn't get on the podcast, but
totally.
yeah.
Well, this was a good way to have a 5 year reunion on a podcast talking. It's pretty classic for the 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 story arc of Mike and my friendship is a really funny story. like like every experience that we have would be a really hilarious and weird children's book.
There's a lot of giggling. It's like every time I get in each other's space, it just giggles.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's like it's kind of like two mischievous kids who both like sprint off the map into the infinite, and then bump our knee and come back and then giggle together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like,
You have to
did you see
separate you
that?
two
Yeah,
in
I saw
class.
something similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you definitely have to separate the two of us. Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I appreciate you guys letting me sit in on the reunion and the audience as well. Michael, I'm looking forward to connecting even further offline as well. And for anybody who wants to jump in on more of this, surround themselves with high performers. We do have the full stack community where we have discussions just like this, and we break down what's going on in the world and how we can live a full stack life. So I want to encourage you guys to check that out, and we appreciate you guys making it to the end. That's Mike. That's Michael. I'm Ted. We'll catch you guys on the next one.